your butt.
Wait a minute, Doc.
Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet.
Hold up just a minute. This is Chase, and I'm once again joined by George Howard Adams, fresh off the tails of Action Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
How do you think we did, George?
Man, I think you guys did a tremendous job. I can tell that you all actually watched the movie, and you seem to really enjoy the movie. And it's just one of those things where it feels good to relive some of those moments from being younger. It's just a good time. You know?
And it's always good when somebody can bring us something that we see from their childhood, especially like a great actor as yourself. We can see some of the inspiration. I know you haven't landed your Action Jackson role yet, but hopefully it's coming down the road. Maybe they do a remake.
Yeah, I might play the uncle or the dad or something.
Motel.
That ship may have sailed, but who knows? They let Liam Neeson is a really old guy do like Taken or whatever. So maybe I can be the old dude doing that.
Yeah, it's there for you. And if you want to listen to that episode, you can go find that on any major streaming platform. But today, we're going to talk wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Dig it.
So when we talked about Action Jackson, we kind of gotten into our love of wrestling. You know, obviously, we grew up in separate eras, which is totally fine. When you were a kid, it was mainly, the Territory days?
Yeah, it was territories, and things were starting to go national.
Yeah.
If you wanted to watch WrestleMania, you watched it on closed circuit TV at a movie theater.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
God. Did you do that a lot?
No, but I remember the ads for it. My mother was not spending that money. The way I saw WrestleMania and Survivor Series I had an uncle that bought all those pay-per-views, and he taped them all. And then he would give me the VHS tapes the next day.
Don't rat your uncle out. The FBI has been looking for him for years. Yeah, I grew up a huge wrestling fan, so it's always fun to talk wrestling. And I want to ask, so what started your wrestling fandom? I know you just talked about your uncle, but growing up in Memphis, that's a huge wrestling territory, huge wrestling town, like Atlanta is. Atlanta and Memphis were huge in those days.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where there was no shame in being a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you're a little kid growing up, you liked the good versus evil kind of thing.
The pageantry.
You know? Yeah. I heard someone say that professional wrestling was like a drag show with fighting for...
It's like the straight man's drag brunch, yeah.
Yeah.
In wrestling, people out there that hate on it, I'm like, what's there to hate on? It's an action movie, it's a comedy show, it's a concert, sometimes it's a club.
Yeah, it's a little bit of the circus.
Yeah, like a stunt show, a drama.
Yeah.
You get everything you need in one go. What else do you need to watch?
Well, people will point out that it's quote-unquote fake.
Yeah.
But they're watching all this other stuff on TV that's scripted as well.
I never got that.
Yeah.
Never got that.
Yeah.
And I know the art of wrestling is to make it as real as possible and blur the lines, but that's part of the art. No one out there other than there are some crazy people that believe it is real or did in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
There's nobody these days. We're all aware. We were aware in the 90s when Mae Young was giving birth to a hand.
Right.
Yeah,
I have a relative, I won't rat him out, that believes the title matches are real.
Really?
Yeah, he believes everything else is a work, but the title matches are like a
full shoot. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, all right, that's whatever, Why ruin that for him?
Yeah, don't. Yeah, he's living a dream with that one. So.
Exactly.
Did you get to see a lot of wrestling shows as a kid?
Yeah, so there were television tapings every week, and then the Mid-South Coliseum often had the big shows, and then occasionally the national promotions would come through and have shows. I actually got to see Hulk Hogan versus the Iron Sheik in a rematch with the Doctor of Style Slick as the manager, and Slick took an atomic drop like a champ. Which I thought was a legit move when I was a kid, though. Even though I knew it was scripted, I thought the atomic drop was something that really was like...
and that was like the fakest move now. You're like, no, does anyone do an atomic drop anymore? I haven't even seen one.
I don't
Maybe
think
CM
so.
Punk pulling it out
maybe,
of the...
Maybe. Like the DDT isn't even a finisher anymore.
Yeah, and back in those days, like the leg drop. Oh, God, watch out.
Yeah. Yeah, the shake, rattle, and roll from Honky Tonk Man.
The camel clutch, all those weird looking finishers now is not even a transition move anymore.
Right. The Iron Sheik probably would have been fighting MMA if he had come up. Because, he was a legit,
Fighter.
Yeah, like a really good wrestler. He was like the bodyguard to like the Shah of Iran or whatever. Like he was a tough dude.
Yeah, and all those guys were next level tough too. Like you're talking about like wrestling with broken legs and stuff. But
yeah, so they could eat.
Yeah, and usually they didn't even get to eat if they did that.
True. Yeah, I've heard
like,
some stories.
Yeah, because like, what did Jim Cornette fall off the scaffolding and bore every ligament in his knee and still never got the surgery?
Yeah, that is the craziest thing.
I've seen that bump too. That's brutal to even watch today.
I remember watching that as a kid, and I don't know if you experienced this, but when you look at that stuff now, you're like, how did I watch that Resolution? Like, and understand what was going on.
Yeah,
like,
how did the brain rot?
Yeah, it's like
you couldn't make out anything in those days.
No,
like,
and it wasn't well lit. And it's like shooting in 480 or whatever. It's like, how does
the frame rate would drop? Do you remember tape trading? Were you a part of tape trading?
I was not, no, but I remember people doing it.
So this kind of segues me into what I really wanted to talk about. So we do basically a film podcast. You're a great actor. I always am curious about wrestling. Because I feel like wrestling and acting and wrestling and film are not that far apart. And some people will throw them in categories of wrestling is its own thing, film's its own thing. And I'm like, not really. Like, I think that there's a lot of parallels there. And I think you're the perfect person to kind of talk about those parallels. And I think it starts with even just going to media. Because horror tape trading, me being a horror fan is a big thing, like back in the 80s and 90s, and there's a lot of lost media out there. A lot of horror movies didn't make it from VHS to DVD, so you had to trade them off.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing for wrestling because it was territorial. You didn't get to see every match, but if you wanted to see when Bret Hart was in Smoky Mountain, I don't even know if that happened, but if Bret Hart did wrestle in Smoky Mountain, then, you knew that the only way you could get is tape trade.
Right, exactly.
So even just the media aspect of VHS brought wrestling into that kind of mainstream category because you were only going to see what's in Smoky Mountain. You weren't going to see what was in NWA or in Atlanta's territory. I do think that kind of starts our questioning.
Yeah.
For you, where does the parallels between wrestling and acting start?
Well, I think part of the problem with people judging wrestling versus acting is someone judges Citizen Kane or some really stuffy, like critically acclaimed movie against something silly that they saw in wrestling. But when you start going more towards the middle in these things, I think they are similar. There are scripts that I've read where I'm like, oh, in order to achieve what they're asking, this is going to have to be cartoonish.
Yeah.
And sometimes in order to achieve what they're asking in wrestling, it's going to be cartoonish, but other times it's going to be ultra realistic. Like I remember a very cartoonish thing where Goldberg ran over Sid Vicious' car. Do you remember that? Yeah. And like Sid Vicious runs out, it's like Goldberg, Goldberg.
Do you remember the Yappa Pie?
Yes.
Strap match? Like Hulk just slamming a leather strap into a cage repeatedly. This is the kind of content you get with wrestling. It's so fun. Yeah, no, I agree with you. If we look at Action Jackson, that's not far from like a wrestling event.
No. But then if you look at something more grounded, like when the Hart Foundation was heel in the U.S., and face in Canada.
Yeah.
Those interviews that Bret Hart did where he was talking about the USA and, like sticking an enema in whatever town that was. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That was very grounded.
Yeah.
It was realistic, and that would have held up in an actual movie. I said hold up because of where I am.
I love the plug. And think about like the actors we have, like The Rock and Batista doing big things in movies, and now they're playing action stars. They're not doing like these incredible performances, but look at how easy that was for them to segue.
Yeah, and I think it's easier for wrestlers to transition to acting than it is for actors to transition into wrestling. I don't know if you remember during the Attitude Era where LL Cool J shows up with the APA and he's like having this conversation, like Booker T comes in, like, what the hell was LL doing?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I know you can act. Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
What are you doing?
Here?
Yeah. And I think it's like, that's where we get the stage performances too. Because wrestling is always bled over into Hollywood. We've gotten a lot of actors, you know, mainly at WrestleMania time, but we get a lot now. I mean, Bad Bunny had a match.
Right.
Like, and did pretty well. But like his outside of that, you know, the promos and everything, it's like, dude, you've done this in like shows before. Like why is it so different now?
Yeah, and even Lawrence Taylor. Remember, Lawrence Taylor was actually a main eventer.
Yeah, WrestleMania 11.
Bam Bam Bigelow is the only champion to be like the main guy in the main event at WrestleMania, you know?
And I remember that being a huge deal when I was a kid, but like that was when wrestling had kind of fallen on hard times.
Yeah, they
like
were bringing in every celebrity they could.
Celebrity Mania, I think is what they nicknamed WrestleMania 11.
Yes.
Because Pam Anderson was there with Shawn Michaels.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
And looked out of place. And that just drives home the point. It's like actors get in there and they're like, what do I do with my hands, Ricky Bobby style?
Right.
And why do you think that is?
You know, that's a really good question. I have a friend that wrestled as the Cat, Ernest Miller.
Oh, yeah.
And
somebody call his mama.
Right. And he's also an actor, and he has this great charisma as a wrestler that he rarely displays as an actor. When he acts, he does a good job, but I feel like if he were more the Cat when he was acting, he would probably be a household name with his charisma in these TV shows. I'm sorry to put you out there like this, Ernest, but you know I love you, man.
We can invite Ernest on the show, and then he can like badmouth you at some point.
Yeah, I mean he's gonna talk trash. That's just what he does. He's a world-class trash talker. But yeah, like
there you have it. Ernest, call me.
Not your mama.
Not your mama. Call me.
Yeah, but like you see him show up at a wrestling event or an autograph signing, you see a video of that, and you see that Cat character come out, and it's incredible.
Yeah, he got really over too in late WCW.
Yeah. Like when he was first getting into wrestling is kind of when I got to know him a little bit.
Yeah.
And I just saw him like rise. I wish they had done more with him in WWE, but like you just see how like, okay, this character would work as like a great character on a show or in a movie, but you don't see that. I don't know if they're afraid to let him be that.
Yeah.
Or if he doesn't want to do that.
Do you think it's like Hollywood kind of puts up a barrier, like this is too lowbrow? Because I know wrestling has that stigma that it's for trashy, low-income people, even though as a wrestling fan all these years, I can attest that is not the case, especially now. It is expensive to go.
Yeah, I think the cheapest ticket at WrestleMania like
$800 or something like that.
Something like that is ridiculous. But I mean, I guess WrestleMania is 2 days now, so it makes it a little bit of a difference, but still.
I attended a Raw for the first time in a long time.
Okay.
And I mean, I got cheap bleed tickets, but they weren't cheap. You know, they were still verging $100 for back row in the top of the building, but it was sold out.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 12,000 people there at State Farm Arena. That's impressive.
Yeah, that's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people for a Monday Night Raw. And I can tell you, walking around, you know, I don't judge anybody, but that was not the crowd that people peg as wrestling fans. I feel like it's more, nowadays it feels like it's more open, but when in the 90s it wasn't. It was like trash TV.
Yes. I think wrestling has gone through these cycles, and you let me know if you agree with this. Yeah. Like when I look back to when I first started watching wrestling, and wrestling really started becoming popular with like the Hulk Hogan and having like rock and wrestling cartoon coming on Saturdays and stuff. It was clearly marketed towards kids. And I feel like it kind of grew up with me. And by the time I was an adult, we had Attitude Era and then like the Ruthless Aggression era. We had the Monday Night Wars and stuff like that. And then there was almost a reset to get it back to kids again.
Yeah.
And now it seems like it's taken that same amount of years to move forward and ultimately have WWE on Netflix, and it's getting more adult again. So I don't know if that's a coincidence or if that's like a pattern that they're trying to.
Yeah. Getting rid of Vince McMahon helped that. So
Yeah, it's so crazy with Vince because, like, Vince is the greatest fight promoter of all time.
all time.
He has gotten people to watch scripted fights on a high level more than someone could get people to watch Mike Tyson, Floyd Mayweather, Muhammad Ali, Rocky Marciano, you know.
It's crazy because WrestleMania is always the most watched event. It's like right
Yeah.
next to the Super Bowl. People watch it. And like, I think this year it's going to be, I think it's going to pass the Super Bowl because
I think you're right.
It is worldwide. No one watches the Super Bowl outside of the United States. It's the most watched. Super Bowl, I think, is the most watched event in the United States, but worldwide, WrestleMania just absolutely kicks the shit out of the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it is crazy. And I think this year it's going to be even crazier. And I agree with you on all that. We won't get into Vince as a person or his character cards because that's another podcast for another day. And
Yeah, I don't want to touch that.
yeah, that's not. Yeah, that's. We're gonna keep it strictly business here.
Right.
But to your point, though, no one has done what he's done. You know,
No.
in Hollywood or, you know, like, I mean, I guess you could say the creation of the Super Bowl, but like that'd be the closest thing.
I mean, he is essentially what Babe Ruth was to baseball when it was dying. Started hitting home runs, and then people were like, "I want to see this.
wanna see it."
See this home run." You know, he had some crappy ideas. He had some terrible things that like you can't do anymore.
The guts to do everything, though, the guts to
Yeah.
just try something is, like him, hate him, whatever. But in any business practice or creative venture, it's almost inspiring to like say, "Hey, I'm just going to go do it and not hesitate." Because look at what happened. Vince created a worldwide sport everybody is into.
Yeah, that works well live and televised. Because think about these over-the-top expressions. One of my favorite things is like when Vince would get scared and like he would do that big swallow,
Like the gulp,
like a cartoon character.
His eyes bugging out of his head.
Yeah, that would not work in a Christopher Nolan movie.
Yeah, no. But it works like when you hear the glass shatter, Stone Cold's coming out, Vince is pissing himself.
Exactly. Like, you know, we suspend disbelief as far as everybody's music being queued up, even if they allegedly don't work for the company.
Yeah.
They just happen to debut and like the DJ was like, "Oh, Chris Jericho's in the back. Let me play his music."
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
No, but it's fun. It's fun.
And that leads me into the production qualities. The production values of wrestling, watching it now, is way better than any TV show or Hollywood, but they are inventing new camera angles, new camera tricks. They're capturing stuff at a mile a minute. Just watching the Royal Rumble, you have 30 men in there, and they're all getting their shit in, and then you have to capture each one's physical reaction to the timed moments, right? So just to time all that stuff, it's like, how is that not so similar to a Hollywood
It's so
production?
amazing. Yeah.
Or a play, right? It's like, hey, we're going to do a superplex before this person runs in. So we got to time the superplex where everybody in this 12,000 seat arena can see it.
Yep.
And then have that done so someone comes in and we're down on the mat so they can focus on that person.
Yeah, you have to hit your mark. You have to be facing the correct camera.
Yeah.
You have to be standing in your light. Like all these different, and there's no do-overs.
None.
Like that Royal Rumble where Batista was going to do the power bomb on John
Yeah.
Cena, and he flipped up too hard, and they both fell out.
That was a
like,
happy accident too.
Yeah, yeah.
They both happened to land at the same time. The acrobatics and everything of has to be like on point at all
Yeah.
times. So, who do you think now, or let me rephrase this: who is the best wrestler / actor? Who has come from the wrestling industry and been a good actor? Because I also see, we talked about the parallels where actors can't come into wrestling and do it, but wrestlers have a hard time of going into acting. I guess it's the way that they're directed,
Maybe so, yeah.
or like casted. They're always casting these like faceless action heroes or faceless like henchmen. You know, you always think about like where they had all those Marine movies or whatever. Where,
Oh yeah, I forgot about those.
or like Ken Kennedy, Shawn Michaels, and all those people. And then you see like Kevin Nash and the Punisher, and he doesn't say a
Right.
word. Big Show and Jingle All the Way.
Right. Kevin Nash and John Wick, though, was nice. He did a good job
Yeah.
with that. That was perfect, right up his alley.
Yeah.
I think so for the time, because the style of acting was different back then, it wasn't as grounded. I think Roddy Piper in They Live was excellent. Everybody's acting style was a little bit more over the top right then, so I think that worked really well. Today, you know, for what he does, which is kind of playing the same dude over and over, The Rock is a great movie star.
Yeah.
And then Dave Bautista, he's not a movie star, but he is an actor
Yeah.
that's transitioned real well. So I think those are probably the ones. I mean, Cena is also like a star that's a star on a TV show and a star in the movies more so than just being like this grounded actor. But I enjoy what he does.
He's funny.
Yeah, he's embraced what he does well. But you have so many people from so many different fields of entertainment that go into acting, and we accept it. Like the number one movie in the country right now is One of Them Days, and the musician SZA is one of the leads in it.
Yeah.
She's not this polished actor, but what she does, they're throwing her, they're letting her play home games instead of away games,
Yeah.
and it just works. So yeah.
It's interesting to think about because the first, like, I don't like the man, like throw him in there with Vince, but Hulk Hogan, he kind of started the whole thing with acting because would he have like Santa with muscles and he started
Mr. Nanny,
and he tried so hard to be Arnold, you know, like instead of just playing Hulk Hogan in movies, which I think he
Thunder in Paradise
Thunder
with
in Paradise.
Carl
Oh my
Weathers.
God, yeah. That's one maybe we touch on down the road. If we do Thunder in Paradise, we're bringing you back on
All
for
right.
that one. That one we may tear into. But
Sting is Hammerhead.
yeah, that's when he just got all of his friends to do it. And,
Yeah.
But it's weird because that's what I remember as a kid. I remember you never saw wrestlers in Hollywood. You saw Hollywood in wrestling, but you never saw wrestlers in Hollywood unless it was like Hulk Hogan. And then I remember down the road,
Jesse.
you got Jesse, who got blacklisted from wrestling.
He got blacklisted from everything, but he doesn't care.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
He doesn't care.
Yeah, and so you have down the road, you got Ready to Rumble, which I remember as a kid loving that movie.
I never actually saw it.
I'm sure it's shit now, but I remember being a kid and being like, you saw all your wrestlers, but they were playing themselves. They weren't playing like other characters. And then The Rock hit the Scorpion King. And then
Yes.
that kind of seemed to turn everything around. And then it became like these wrestlers are not getting these roles of these, oh, you're a wrestler, you can only play an action star. It's like, no, John Cena's in these like family comedies or these rom-coms, and then The Rock's in everything. Like, but he's still kind of an action star, but he's in these comedies, he's in these family movies. He kind of did a little bit of everything. So you're seeing that role break down. Batista's in all kinds of different things, but
Guardians and one of the James Bond movies.
Yeah.
I tell you though, you put The Rock and Kevin Hart in something, I'm probably going to watch it.
yeah, they have great chemistry.
Yeah,
together,
I'm going to watch it.
yeah.
You know?
And The Rock's gotten so much better, but he just plays himself, I think, in every movie he's in.
Yeah. Which is fine. It's kind of a category like blaxploitation movies are. It's like, oh, this is a Rock movie.
We're watching The Rock.
He's going to do his thing, and it's probably going to be funny. But one thing I do really like about him is that he lets everybody else shine. There are certain people like him and even Tom Cruise to a certain extent where like, you see a Tom Cruise movie, you see a Mission Impossible movie, he'll get his ass kicked.
Yeah.
He's not one of those guys that's like, well, since I'm the star, I'm not going to lose any fights. He'll lose some fights and let the other people rescue him.
See, I'm a big Tom Cruise apologist
Okay.
out there. I don't know how this is going to land with everybody, but I think, like, I tell everybody all the time, I don't think Tom Cruise is bad as an actor. I think he's
No,
really good,
I
and
don't.
I have a high respect for him. I get how people, like, think of him. I guess the Scientology thing people can't get over.
Right.
I do think he was like an arrogant prick for a while, and that kind of created that persona for him. But like he showed up at Atlanta in Atlantic Station, just went to the movie theater, and hung out with everybody.
I remember that. Yeah.
I was at the theater that day. I just wasn't going to see Mission Impossible, but I happened to like be in the same room, and everybody was talking about how just nice of a guy. He went around the entire room and thanked everybody for coming out to the movies and seeing it, and like how important it is to go see movies. And I'm like, the dude loves movies and loves film.
Yes.
So it's hard to hate. Like, I get you were a prick when you were younger and a little weird.
A lot of us were.
Yeah, yeah. It's
You
like,
know what I mean?
I just think
without millions of dollars in fame.
yeah, and that'll change you.
Yeah, yeah.
So hopefully it doesn't change you when your millions come. But what was your favorite era of wrestling?
All right, this is a little conditional. So when it comes to non-WWF wrestling,
Yeah.
it's going to be the Territory days when Hawk and Animal were running around everywhere. They were my favorite tag team.
Before WWF ruined them.
Yeah, when they became the Legion of Doom instead of being called the Road Warriors.
See, I feel so bad because like every older wrestling fan, I'm like, I remember them as Legion of Doom, and they're like, shut your damn mouth.
Yeah.
Which you brought this program here. We'll put it on our Instagram for
Okay.
people to see. But I love the Road Warriors being on the cover of it and like shot in a garage. It looks like
Right. With Precious Paul Ellering.
So would you say the NWA is like what like the
those
NWA
were-
era?
Yeah, that was the best non WWF era. If I had to go with like more modern non-territory wrestling, then it would be the Attitude Era. Same era that you were saying you came up.
Don't let Jim Cornette hear you.
Yeah, Jim Cornette is a curmudgeon that doesn't like any change. You know, whatever the structure of wrestling was when he came into the business, he thinks that, you know, and he's an expert. I mean, I'm not going to say he's not an expert, but you
love
like
his
what
show,
you
yeah.
like.
Yeah. I agree with him a lot now. I didn't agree
Yeah.
with him for a period of time as a fan because I was like, oh, protect my Attitude Era where people were driving Zambonis to the ring. And
Right.
But now I totally get it as an adult. I guess it's just your taste change over the years. So,
Yeah.
and I feel like the new modern product is going more towards that. Not AEW though. Just WWE is like going back towards that. We're going to create stories and you're going to get into them. And then the matches will be fine. But we're not going to go over the top. So,
Yeah, some of the matches, let's say 5 years ago,
yeah.
I was just kind of like, I would just watch a movie
Yeah.
if I want to see like a great action sequence with people I don't care about. I can see Henchman number 3 get thrown off a building, and that's cooler than just seeing like this random wrestler that doesn't have any great story behind them get hit with a pile driver, you know?
Well, even looking through this program, I'm jealous you grew up in this era too. So, like, I think that is a good choice because, like, what do we have? The Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight
yeah.
Express,
The fabulous ones, the fabulous Freebirds.
Dr. Death, Lex Luger at his like before he drove the Lex Express around.
Yeah, back when they used to talk about Florida wrestling all the time, and Lex Luger was like one of the main guys in Florida wrestling, and you would always see these little articles about Lex Luger's going to land in the NWA one day and all this kind of stuff, and like he joins the Horsemen, and like it was an exciting time.
This program is like a heartstring being strung here, especially in an era that I watched like as a voyeur. Like through my brother's eyes.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, I missed out. I did get to see Jerry Lawler wrestle in my hometown, though, in front of 40 people.
Pull down the strap.
He did.
Yeah.
Hey, you could tell when he made it into the building, he was like, what did I sign up for? And he was coming straight from a Raw taping.
Was he heel or face when he?
Oh, he was definitely a face because he
Okay.
wasn't wrestling much at that time. He was very part-time, but there were
Okay.
still like NWA tours that he was doing, and
Yeah.
he would just wrestle occasionally. This was like, to give you context, this was this was like 2002, 2003.
Okay, yeah, he's
And
up there in age.
yeah,
definitely.
so he was just wrestling for minor appearances, but it was like at a fairgrounds. I remember there was nobody there. It was crazy. I was like, I'm watching Jerry Lawler, the commentator I see on TV,
Right.
and I'm like, why is he doing this? He doesn't need this money.
That was always weird for me because his persona as a commentator was so different from what I grew up with. I enjoyed both, but it always just blew my mind that was the same.
Yeah, like
And I guess he did some acting too, Man on the Moon. You know,
yeah, he did.
played himself. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that qualifies
Well, I
as
mean,
acting.
like, yeah, and he got out in the public eye with Andy Kaufman,
Yeah,
and that
yeah.
whole thing, and that was, that's crossing that barrier too, where he's playing it straight, and
Yeah.
he looks actually mad. He's actually slapping Andy Kaufman across the face on David Letterman.
Yeah, people bought it.
Yeah, I mean, they were like, people were calling the police.
Right.
So it's like, we shit on wrestling a lot, but like when it blurs the lines like that, like there's nothing better of entertainment.
I agree. Yeah.
Did you ever see Jim Cornette's thing on why people love wrestling? We're spotting Jim Cornette a lot of publicity.
I don't know if I've ever seen
I
that.
can't do
I've
it.
seen a lot of Jim Cornette stuff, but
I can't do it justice. I'll give you the rundown of it. I'll send it to you later. But it's
Okay.
like, he basically says, like, wrestling is, you're driving by the side of the road and there's a guy beating up this smaller guy and just kicking the shit out of him. And you're like, oh, I can't take that big guy, so I can't help out. But you're watching, rooting for the little guy, and the little guy just comes back and he starts getting back at the big guy. And then eventually maybe you'll pay money to see the little guy fight the big guy. And you just want to see him get back for you. That is so poetic. And
that is
that's
true.
Yeah, and I was like, that is an amazing insight onto what wrestling is. And it's the same thing with acting. It's like you got to be able to make people believe. I think that's the lost art of acting, right? Like, I go to a movie to escape and live in this world and think in this world, and now it's all green screened and actors delivering just lines. I don't feel like I'm escaping anymore. I feel like I'm kind of missing that. And wrestling now is the opposite. Now wrestling feels like an escape.
Yeah.
Like they kind of flopped a little bit.
Yeah, there's some adversity every time. Like
Yeah.
that was one of the problems that I used to have with like a lot of Batman stuff.
Yeah.
Is like you can't do anything to Batman. That I think that's one of the reasons why the last Batman movie worked so well for so many people is that Batman gets his ass kicked and then he has to work himself back to defeat his foe. That's just like when there was this angle between Macho Man and Ricky Steamboat
Yeah.
in the 80s where Macho Man kept dropping the ring bell
Yeah.
on Ricky Steamboat's neck and he had to have a tracheotomy.
Oh my God.
Yeah, of course, there was never a hole there.
Hey,
But he had to have a tracheotomy. And then Ricky Steamboat came back from the injuries.
That was that legendary WrestleMania match
Yes,
too.
full speed, 100 miles per hour the entire time. But that was such a great story because you saw this hero overcome.
The adversity.
Yeah.
And that match is credited for modern wrestling. I think it started modern
Mm-hmm.
wrestling. So yeah, big shout out there.
Yeah.
Before we get out of here, because we can talk about this all day. Maybe we
Right.
should just start our own podcast. Throw the likes up. We'll do a wrestling.
we can do a wrestling podcast.
Yeah, we'll just do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your Mount Rushmore of wrestlers.
Oh, man.
I was going to throw that on you. I didn't want you to prep at all. I want this to be totally improv.
So I'm just going to go with like my personal
Yeah, it's just
Mount
your
Rushmore,
Rushmore. Yeah.
the people that made me feel something. So 2 spots are automatically taken with Hawk and Animal,
Yeah,
you know.
the big time.
Yeah. And a lot of people are going to say Ric Flair, but when I was a kid, I didn't like Ric Flair. I liked him when I got older.
Yeah.
So I am going to go with not the best wrestler in the world, but I just really always liked him, Lex Luger. You know,
Yeah.
I love Lex Luger. I actually worked out at his gym Main Event when I was a teenager. And he was one of those people that made me put more eyeballs on wrestling. I'm just like, I want to see what Lex Luger is going to do. In my last spot, that's a difficult one because I do like so many people, but I am going to have to say that, like, as an adult, The Rock made me tune in more. Once his character kind of took off. I have a Nation of Domination shirt, and I wear it all the time. I need a new one, but like when The Rock was kind of the leader of the nation, I got very interested in what was happening between him and Stone Cold.
Yep.
And that made me watch Attitude stuff, you know. and the
Before he
Monday Night
became the
Wars.
corporate champ.
Yeah. So I'm just going to stick with those. But like, I could knock everybody off, and Hawk and Animal would just be my dudes, you
Yeah.
know, till the end. Rest in peace, both of those guys. They were just my favorite. I have a cousin that is a Oakland Raiders fan because he saw Oakland Raiders fans wearing the spiked pads
Yeah.
that the Road Warriors used to wear. And he is a hardcore Oakland Raiders fan now.
And those things don't
Las
get-
Vegas Raiders.
Those things don't get talked about enough, you know, like how wrestling bleeds into other parts of the society.
Yeah,
That
and you see
poor guy.
316 shirts with whoever 316.
Yeah.
You know, because of the Austin 316 thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's going to be my Mount Rushmore. Who do you have?
So I've always toiled over this question because, like, again, I grew up in the Attitude Era. I didn't catch Ric Flair in his prime, and I was mostly a WWF at the time kind of guy. So that's mainly what I was watching. First two are easy for me, and they can be flip flopped, whatever. It's Brett and Sean. And that whole rivalry in the 90s with the real heat on it.
Yeah.
And, like, we all knew that they hated each other.
Sunny days.
Yes. Oh. And, you know, Brett was just such a great in-ring technician. And Sean was just an amazing wrestler.
Yeah,
You
they
know,
both made everybody else look good too.
so good.
Yeah.
And Sean, huge prick, probably. Obviously, I only know what other people say. I've never
Yeah.
met the guy. But, like, I had a pair of Shawn Michaels tights my grandmother made me.
Oh, wow.
And it said Heartbreak Kid on the back. I was 6 years old, running around. God rest her soul. Amazing woman.
Yeah.
I was a huge Shawn Michaels fan. I don't know. It's like the high flying, I guess, like really relates to a kid.
Yes.
Especially when you see it and you're like, oh man, that's very acrobatic. That's really cool. Like
Yeah.
I was big into sports too. So they kind of reminded me of someone flying around a football field or like Vince Carter in 2000 dunking, you know.
Yes.
You were like, man, that's really cool. And Brett just made me believe every match was real.
Yeah.
And I didn't appreciate that until I got older. But when I watched Brett now, like go back, I was like, damn, he was so good. And it is such a shame that he didn't get to finish out his career the way he should have.
Yeah, I wish we had gotten him versus Kurt Angle.
So many Bret Hart matches, or Brett and Eddie, like
Right.
later
Yeah.
when Eddie had kind of developed more. Kurt Angle's one that I throw on my list.
Yeah,
'cause-
yeah, I hated leaving him off.
yeah, and damn you, Dave Meltzer, for never giving him a 5-star match. Dude.
Why is Dave Meltzer the authority on rating people's matches?
I don't know. Dave Meltzer shouldn't be an authority on anything anymore. Like listening to that guy talk, what a blowhard. And now his like WWE hate and his AEW love just like makes me like not even listen to him. He basically shits on his own legacy.
Yeah.
Oh.
Does he have a legacy other than just being someone that doesn't like stuff? That's what you talk about with him. You don't talk about what he likes.
Yeah.
You talk about what he doesn't like,
Yeah,
which is
Realism.
not a
or-
great thing, you know?
You got to do 14 flips in a row and then fall headfirst into a table. And that's what Dave Meltzer likes.
Yeah.
And then it's 7-star match. I was like, I thought there was a 5-star rating system. When did this 7-star shit start? Like,
Right, yeah.
oh, I hate that, man.
Yeah. I mean, I did enjoy like the tables, ladders, and chairs matches back in the day.
course.
But when it became like, we're going to see stuff like this all the time,
It doesn't
special.
It's not special
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
And like in AEW, they do it every night and like blading and bleeding and
Yeah.
and
I don't need the blood. I don't need the blood.
yeah. Occasionally, it's okay if to get a point across that hey, ooh, this got violent, you know.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. It makes it phony, you know.
Yeah.
It makes it feel unbelievable. And then I can't get behind it anymore. When I'm watching wrestling, I'm like, I'm watching this movie. I want to zone out and feel what you're feeling. And if I'm not feeling that, then what's the point of watching it? It's like, it's the same thing with the show. It's like, this is too stupid for me to believe it's real,
Right.
gone.
So have you noticed, this is an observation I've just recently had, but if you watch a segment from like a television taping in like the 80s or whatever, when someone gets attacked, people are screaming. They're reacting like something is actually happening. Now people are cheering like it's just a sporting event. It doesn't seem like they're as invested
Yeah.
as they used to be
No, not at all.
back then.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely true. And it goes back to the point of it made me believe it the way that I want to watch a movie and really feel for the characters. I want to feel what they're feeling. And it's the same thing with wrestling. It's not that I think it's real. It's that I'm zoning out. Like,
Yeah, I'm gonna enjoy this like when like your guy Shawn Michaels there when he's wrestling Ric Flair and he's about to give him the sweet chin music and he tells him he loves him.
yeah,
like-
because he knows it's going to end his career.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, I guess my man card just got pulled.
Yeah, I'm starting
it's
to cry a little
no,
bit.
I'm cutting onions. I'm cutting onions. You know.
We all shed a tear. Every wrestling fan, like, and then he almost couldn't pull the trigger earlier in the match. Like that long term storytelling is just a beautiful thing, and that's like I said. I mean, it rounds back to Bret Hart and Kurt Angle. Like they used to tell great stories in the ring. Kurt was. I'm so grateful I got to grow up watching Kurt Angle wrestle.
Yeah, he was amazing. Even in TNA where he was.
Perk Angle.
I wasn't going to say that.
We're all saying it now.
Because he recently was asking people not to say it. I was like, man, I feel bad because I've used that term, you know. But yeah,
I liked it. I liked his interview though, where he said that that's what people knew me as at the time. I mean, you know, I'm glad he's on the other side of it because that man deserves all the legacy, all the credit. He showed up for every day in work, and as a fan, I'm so grateful for people like Kurt Angle who battled through and
He's Captain America. He's like,
can't beat Kurt Angle.
yeah, real Captain America.
And then my fourth pick too, I don't even know. Like I always I'm like, do I put The Rock? Do I put Stone Cold? How do you not put Stone Cold?
Exactly.
And
How do you not put Undertaker? You know,
Right. And Undertaker I loved as a kid because I loved the mystical side, you know, like setting people on fire and sending people to hell.
yeah. Why do we have to go with like a Mount Rushmore? Why can't we go with like our 7 dwarfs or our 12 apostles of wrestling or something?
Yeah, your double Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to put Eddie there. Rey Mysterio captivated me as a kid, especially the High Flyer. All these people, Triple H. Triple H I hated more than any human being alive.
Rick Rude.
Rick Rude, yeah.
Macho Man.
Yeah. You can interchange all these people. Like and
Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig.
yeah, I
Like,
missed his
I'm not going to backpedal, but I kind of wish I had said Mr. Perfect in there. Everything from his actual wrestling to like his like segments that they would shoot of him doing various sports
Yeah.
to him being a commentator. All of that was incredible.
Yeah, and I think hearing all this, I think for my fourth spot, because of what happened to the business, where it went, and how popular it got, I think I got to put Stone Cold on there.
Yeah.
I think it's just hard not to. Because people
I
talk
agree.
about The Rock now, but if it wasn't for Stone Cold, wrestling would be dead and buried.
Yeah.
Or WCW would have
It'd
took
be
over.
something different.
Yeah.
It'd be something different. Vince would have figured it out.
Yeah, he would
But
have found
like
something.
he would have made a different king.
Yeah.
And Stone Cold was really hot for like 4 years or 5 years or something like. It wasn't very long that Stone Cold was that dude.
People forget his career was also cut very short with all the neck injury, suffered by Owen, also great legend.
Yeah.
Whose career was tragically cut short.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we could build this Mount Rushmore out for days, but I would say Brett and Shawn, that was a magical time in the 90s. Those two, they could wrestle mops and it would still be, sorry, Dave, a 5-star match. So, I know he doesn't like to give that to him because they're not both in all elite wrestling.
Yeah, whatever.
Any closing comments you want to make on wrestling and versus acting? What do people should people still continue to watch wrestling? What if you're a new fan? Do you go do you go out and watch today?
I think you should. I mean, it's something that everybody can understand. It does have lessons in morality, way more than it did in the Attitude Era.
There was no morality.
I'm glad that was not a thing when I was a kid because I would not have been able to watch wrestling.
Yeah.
Had one of those moms that was just like, no, there were 12 curse words in this. Like, can't
My
see
mom
it.
tried. My mom tried. We got away with it, but it wouldn't. Thanks to my brother. If it wasn't for my brother, I don't think I
See,
would.
it was just me. So,
Yeah.
like, that's why I couldn't really get away with that. But yeah, I think people should watch wrestling. It's one of those things. If you have kids, you have the opportunity to say, like, something's right or something's wrong.
And we're all in agreement. Everyone's booing the same people and everyone's cheering the same people for the most part. There are some exceptions. Like,
Yeah.
heard a few boos for Cody Rhodes when we were in Atlanta.
Oh, really?
Yeah, trickling down from the top.
Cody Raheem Rhodes.
Yeah.
Have you seen that stuff where they're like, he's the only black champion left in wrestling?
Well, George, tell everybody what you got going on. If you can tell us what you got going on, where they can follow you to find out what you got going on in the future.
Well, you can follow me, Blacktastic, on everything. Yeah, what I have going on is just like continually auditioning. You can catch me in the Holiday Inn Express commercials right now, and I'm always promoting whatever my people are doing. If you're supporting my people, you're supporting me. So you'll see me repost what my friends have going on, and like, please just give it a look because we can all use a few more eyeballs on what we're doing.
We're all in this together for one art. So,
Yes.
and we got to lean on each other, especially in this day and age. That's all we can do is lean on each other.
Yeah, and we have an opportunity, like with this podcast, for instance. This is an opportunity that wouldn't be here, you
Yeah.
know, if you go back like 10 years. And I have to say this about you and Andrew and Kyle. It's awesome that you guys are doing this and sticking to it, because I can't tell you how many people I know that have done an episode of a podcast. Like, the internet is a graveyard of an episode or two of a podcast, and a bunch of podcasts with no direction or anything, but like, can tell you guys are friends, you're passionate about what you're doing, like the love that you all have for what you're doing is just like coming through the speakers, and that's why I wanted to be a part of this. So thank you for including me. Keep up the great work, and it's an honor.
I really appreciate the kind words. You're welcome anytime. Like I said, you're a great actor. I've enjoyed your work even before I met you with Hellfest. Like,
Okay.
that was the one. I knew it stuck with me, and I never told you that was like when we met for the first time. I was like, this guy looks familiar, and it took me forever to figure out where I knew you from. And you told me you were an actor, and you were all like had all these great roles, and I was like, oh, I still remember him from something. Right. And then I saw you. I was sitting down at a Regal Theater in a Holiday Inn Express commercial. And I was like, I need to catch up with him. But talented actor. He hasn't told me anything. I know he's got something big on the way.
Yeah.
So please follow him. Find out what that thing is and support him. Support all the local actors here in the great city of Atlanta. Find art. Support it somewhere.
Find your community, you know?
Yeah, support wrestling. That's about all the time we have here. Thank you so much for coming on. If you ever want to do that wrestling podcast, I'm right here. So
Let's do it. Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
Let's figure it out.
We appreciate George. He will probably come back on to later episodes. We will drag him kicking and screaming. So we hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and please follow him at Blacktastic.